Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth release. You can see we have the final of the new basics. This is the Mosasaurus, and I am very intrigued to see what this one is like out of the packaging because we have never had a marine reptile in the basic line before, so pretty monumental when it comes to this figure. Just like with the others, we have a nice little open window area. You can see the Rebirth logo, the Mosasaurus species name, and then again on the back, the checklist basically of all the figures in this wave, all of which we have now reviewed. And I also want to give a shout out again to my good buddy Eric for hooking me up with this. This is another of the entire line that he was able to score for me from his local HEB store. So thank you so much again to my awesome buddy Eric. So let's go ahead and pop this open and we'll check it out. So here is our 12-inch basic Mosasaurus, and wow, this is definitely the best painted 12-inch basic figure ever. Like, this one without a doubt takes the cake as far as being the best looking figure that Mattel has honestly ever produced in this series of figures, because it actually has paintwork from head to tail. The only thing honestly that seems to be missing when it comes to the coloration of this one over some of the other Mosasaurus that Mattel has released is the light tone moving along the entire underbelly. Outside of that, again, it's actually pretty nicely done. Sculpt wise, I feel like it's going to look pretty much the same as the others. You can see starting here in the head sculpt, it looks really good. The fine detail definitely looks quite crisp, and as a whole replicates what I know of the Mosasaurus from Rebirth very nicely, and also again is painted quite nicely with a dark blackish tone for the upper part of the head, and then you have a light gray for the lower jaw. We can also see the eye painted with a yellow. Unfortunately, again, no articulated jaw, so we can't open the mouth of the Mosasaurus, but this one would actually be a really fun figure to get a hold of to repaint. As you move back into the figure itself, again, as far as the body goes, you can see all of those bumpy kind of like very large sort of osteoderms moving along the course of the back of the Mosasaurus. We can also see that black continue to lead back in pattern before transitioning to a brown, just like we've seen on all of the Mosasaurus figures so far. It is a bit of a lighter brown, but as you move down into the side of the body, you can see the greenish tone pick up, and of course how the patterns lead down into the side of the figure. We can also see some creasing as we lead down into the flippers. The flippers themselves are very nicely sculpted. You can see kind of like some small bumpy sort of osteoderm-like scales and stuff as you lead through, as my camera decides not to focus on them. Even some little slits and injuries and stuff, which I think we saw on the larger ones, at least as far as the bite and blast Mosasaurus. And as we move out here into the tail, you can see that very dark brown pick up, and I really like the transition for this one because you can see it's actually kind of a smoother transition to that dark brown than what we had on some of the other mainline figures. Also, when we get nice and close, you can get a good feel for how impressive the skin texture looks as you move along the side of the body of the Mosasaurus as well. Nice kind of wrinkling and creasing as you lead down. Pretty much just creases the entire way through the underside of the Mosasaurus, and then you lead out into the tail, and again we have that dark brown that leads through the rest of the tail. We also have the same tail sculpt as the Bite and Blast Mosasaurus, which is a little bit different from the super colossal version. And of course, you're going to see the same thing when you lead to the other side and take a look at it from over here. But it is really, really cool looking. Articulation-wise, you can articulate the flippers up and down. You can also swivel those. You can see the same for the rear flippers, up and down, can also swivel. And then you have the tail, which can go up, down, left, and right. Doesn't swivel and forward. Well, it kind of does, like slightly, you can see. It just sort of wiggles, but you can't swivel it the entire way. But again, it is actually a little loose. You can see it kind of just flops there. But still pretty cool. Again, definitely a very nicely done Mosasaurus, and I absolutely love the fact that we in general have a Mosasaurus in this line now. As far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at about 13 inches or around 33 centimeters, and then for a height, now I don't know how you should measure this one. It's kind of standing up on its flippers, so I guess we'll just go with this height currently, about 3¼ inches or just shy of about 8½ centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Mosasaurus, the basic version, and you can see it's got a pretty good size to it as per usual. When it comes to the basics, they're never super tiny, but they're never all that large either. But for another comparison to further give you a feel for the size of this one, here we have on on the left-hand side, the Matchbox version of the Mosasaurus, which came with the boat next to the basic version. You can definitely see how much nicer looking the sculpt of the basic figure is compared to the Matchbox version. The Matchbox version in the head sculpt just looks a little off to me, actually, now looking at these two together. But you can very clearly see that the basic version is a little bit bigger. And I think probably when it comes to other Mosasaurus comparisons, we're pretty much done here after this one, because we have the Bite and Blast version of the Mosasaurus next to the basic version, and we can very clearly see the size difference is massive. And then we've got one final comparison with all of the basics for the new Jurassic World Rebirth line as far as the newer figures go anyway. You can see we've got the Spino, T-Rex, Mosasaurus, and Quetzalcoatlus all together. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World 12-inch, in quotation marks, Basic Mosasaurus is absolutely awesome. Definitely one of the best basic figures that Mattel has ever created. The sculpt is, of course, excellent, as pretty much all of the new Mosasaurus have been the entire way through. For what I can tell, again, still haven't seen the movie yet, but the overall appearance of this one very nicely replicates what we've seen so far of the Mosasaurus in the trailers for Rebirth. And the paintwork of this one, again, is so much nicer than most basic figures usually are. It actually has paintwork from head to tail, which is a huge plus for this figure. It's not one of those basics where you look at it and you think, wow, that's definitely very basic. This one overall doesn't look half bad, and the proportions, in my opinion, are a lot nicer on this than most other basic figures. So also a massive plus for this one. It does feature some articulation, not the greatest in the world, and of course lacking an articulated jaw, but still pretty good for what it is, and definitely, again, working fairly smoothly except for that loose tail, but that's not really a big deal in my opinion. It still works okay, I guess. But overall, this is definitely worth picking up. So if you happen to have an HEB store near you, which is again where my buddy Eric picked this up from, you can probably grab it there. Otherwise, hopefully they begin showing up online at some point in the near future. So if you can grab it, definitely do so. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.